Welcome to the inaugural episode of Sockcast's Clears, a show where I have a clear that I think is interesting enough to talk about for your viewing pleasure and edutainment. We're on Trials for Navigator 6, the fourth stage on Ultimate Trial here, and from the title you can probably tell this is going to be a weird one. It's not fitting cleanly inside of a niche, it's not an extreme challenge, this is just kind of like an average clear from whatever I could pull out of my roster here. And as you all might know, I have a very extensive roster with, fully built, half-built operators all over the place, but they're at like a baseline level, E1 level 60, which is what Silver Ash Altar here is. And so I wanted to kind of explore the topic of clears that aren't just like guides or extreme niche nights or like faction nights or whatever, because Arknights as a whole has just such strategic depth and flavor here that it's just more, it's greater than the sum of its parts, quite frankly. And so here you're going to see me use Silver Ash Altar to lower the cost of our expensive guards and to, give our fast redeploying operator setup here a lot of extra physical punch. And that'll be used to great effect here. And then we're also taking Wolfenite for her tower controlling abilities here. We're going to use those undetonated traps to take control of the towers. As you can see, we picked the particle tracking limiter module or whatever, so fatties are spawning and we have plenty of damage on board to deal with that, and we can also keep very good directional control to make sure that everyone's facing the right way when it comes to taking down that directional damage shield. And we will leak to 1 to enter King's territory, because defeating those Zalak entities will grant us King's relics. The first one, of course, is King's Legacy. That's going to give Silver Ash in particular a lot of SP. All the rest of the team is using mostly passive and on-deployment skills, so we don't have to worry about that as much, but definitely want Silver Ash pumping out those slash charges for the rest of the team, as well as some passive health regen for everybody else. It's not going to do much in the way of things, but it definitely certainly helps. And so now also you might have seen that the boats are on field now, so we're going to have to be dealing with those, but thankfully our fast redeployment allows us to reposition cleanly if, of course, I wasn't stupid enough to just let April get eaten by the boat there while we're trying to deal with Mudrock. I start panicking a little, as you can see on stream. Speaking of which, I tried to get a clean recording of this, but my recording didn't save properly, so we're just casting over the stream VOD here. And yeah, that's basically the entirety of the gist of this clear, is that I'm using a whole bunch of units to kind of lean into the synergy that we get from the unique perk that Trials for Navigator grants us, and just kind of exploiting that to the maximum here. Also, while, trying not to go too overboard with too many newer unit kits and, kind of maybe some weaker options for otherwise very solid units. I'm using skill 1s for the agent vanguards in particular, and I downgraded from an Inez down to a Surfer, so we're running Cantabile Surfer for our agents, since Silver Ash himself doesn't generate DP. So why bother? Why go to the trouble of posting this in the first place? Well, the thing about recent Arknights YouTube, as I've kind of come to experience it now, is that it's just too polarized, or I guess extreme. Everything just has to like fall into niche nights with, the clearly defined factions. Some factions are stronger than others, and then you have the all sorts of extreme challenges, one player, a no hit, one tile relay. It's gotten so, I wouldn't say oversaturated, since this is all very impressive, much more impressive than what I'm doing here, but there's a certain level of appreciation for like the messy process of getting this good in the first place that just kind of gets lost. And this is what I wanted to highlight in terms of what we want to try and maybe encourage, I guess, especially with all the newer players coming in from Enfield, or just the constant trickle of newer players in general being like, okay, what am I looking at, right? There are certain things that just kind of get lost on a lot of people's minds that don't necessarily, lend themselves to be super obvious to someone who's naive to it. So that's what I'm here doing today, is just kind of showing part of the process of how you even get there in the first place. I'm definitely not on that level per se, and I won't claim to be good at this video game, but I have zero doubt that a lot of those extreme clears just have so much hours and hours of just learning the game and perfecting a clear to make sure that things, you know, go exactly as they want it to for the camera, that can go very understated, especially since a lot of these videos don't have any commentary. And so one of the goals that I have in the future of this series is to perhaps get clears that aren't my own to cast over this series, so that, you know, we can break them down and see and appreciate all the mechanics in play. And so that's kind of where I want to go with this. But you know, of course, I have to have an audience for that, and well, I don't have to. I am making this for myself after all. But you know, that's kind of what I wish would happen. So you know, if nothing else, I got to make things for myself, and that's exactly what's happening here. Hey, Editing Sock here. I just wanted to cut in and add an additional note and just say that, hey, if you're, you know, enjoying what I'm putting out here and you want to see more of it, especially with clears that aren't my own, maybe we get the attention of someone who's doing something more impressive that I can analyze even more, leave a comment, not necessarily for the algorithm, but for me in particular as the creator, and share the video with someone that you think will appreciate it. In a respectful way, of course. Don't go spamming Discord servers with it. That's pretty uncool. But the main reason I say this is because it really does help me as a creator see comments that are, you know, either nice or, like, you know, very respectful in their feedback. It helps heal the mental chip damage that is, you know, looking at nastier comments, of which I haven't received a lot of, thank goodness, and also seeing the numbers not really ramp up to where I want to see them in terms of channel growth. Because, you know, the algorithm, we love to place blame on that, but it really is just an audience game, right? It's not an algorithm, it's an audience, and word of mouth and just direct recommendations, I feel like, go way farther than we give it credence for. So again, a comment for me to read, and share the video with someone that you think will like it. Anyways, back to my live post commentary. Here you can see that we have so much stall potential, by the way. So with Silver Ash proccing freeze and these Mudrock Golems just taking it to the face here, we don't even need to rely on just the stall options provided by Kafka, Crown Slayer, and Texas Alter here. And so we were able to just kind of really have that extra insurance there that, you know, obviously I might need it, because, you know, we lost April 2 to micromanagement issues earlier, and we basically freed her through the power of agents actually being able to hit air, as well as the tower control that we set up using Wolfenite here. So it's such a micro-intensive strategy. We are going to drop, like, you know, optimal stuff here. All those optimal clears that you see for the camera, like, you know, those had some serious thought put into them, and then to actually execute on them afterwards is something else entirely. And so that's where we are right now. I know my commentary is going to be a little bit in between here, but this is very much a long and drawn-out fight here, especially since all of the time slow that you get from just having to go into bullet time, get your bearings, make sure everything's going to plan, and figure out what you're doing. You can kind of see through my lower left face cam there that I'm just kind of like looking everywhere on screen, trying to figure out, like, okay, is everything going well? Is my strategy going here? And again, not a lot of people play with face cam or, like, you know, commentate their voice, so you might not see these kinds of things when trying to figure that out. So I don't know, that's just my personal outlook on things, and kind of why I don't really watch a lot of these clears too, because it's like, oh yes, I know it's impressive, and you know, these are really talented players putting everything they got on the line here, but it's just not a good viewing experience for me personally. And I don't know, there's taste to it, there's all sorts of nuance here, and discussions that we're probably not ready to have, quite frankly. So I'll just try to leave it at that for now. We're in wave 2 now. I'm opting not to use the beacon here, otherwise we could just kind of skip over this Witch King phase very easily. But what we have here is a challenge of territory control when it comes to those towers in the center, but especially the tower in the lower right, because that tower in the lower right is the location where Witch King is going to stand under on his second phase. And so if you don't have that tower captured by then that tower is just going to heal him, and you have very limited space to kind of bash on him with his directional shield. You can only effectively harm him from the right side. So we're going to have to make sure that we capture that tower by the time we get to phase 2, whenever that happens. And April is our only real viable way of capturing that tower, since she can just sit underneath tower very, very safely using cloaking. However, you'll see that a slight wrench gets thrown in that plan as I try to clear out the saxophonists in the middle here with just everything I've got. I'm using all of those slash charges from Silver Ash, which, by the way, he's at E1 level 60 at skill level 7. This is kind of like my baseline that I try to play with and get used to with all of the new operators that I get, and I usually try to experiment with them during my trust farms. I try not to bring some of my veteran units out, and so what that means is that I'm able to use these operators, still semi-effectively, even though they're not at their full strength, and I kind of know what to expect from these operators, especially if I have them show up in an IS run. But of course that doesn't always happen, but sometimes I get situations like this where I'm like, you know what, I have this operator, they're good enough, and E1 here is good enough. I wouldn't really get that much benefit from the E2 differential here, and so I just decided, you know what, I'll use him now, and I'm gonna have a good time. And you can't really argue with that, right? In the meantime, while I was talking about that, you can see that Wolfenite got relocated to the bottom right tower section now, and that would be dangerous, but we have a few pieces of insurance on our side. First of all, we have just a lot of units to bait aggro with, so Surfer is taking that like a champ, and you can also tell that we're getting healed by King's Legacy. So even if, Wolfenite takes a little bit of chip damage, we'll have another person fill in for her while she just regens that off, and we can keep her traps out on the battlefield to capture the middle here. Of course, the middle here is very much not being captured, because redeploying Wolfenite means that her traps are removed from the field, and, that's kind of a shame. I have to, redo my progress there. We also lost progress on the bottom middle tower because of a stray blood shaman just exploding, so that kind of sucks, but, you deal with it. And because of just this scuffed execution, it's going to take pretty much all of phase 1 to just kind of wait for Witch King to move up to the upper right where he isn't covered by a tower before we actually take a phase off of him. And as you can see, in this wave 2 on Ultimate Trial, we have boats spawning in. These, of course, are the boats from IS5, if you have not experienced that ending yet. So Sarkaz's Furnace-side Fables is always full of surprises, and with the boats capturing operators, we need to take them down at some point, otherwise we are never getting that operator back for the rest of the map. And so having that tower control is really, really important, since these boats can be very tanky, and of course the scaling damage that these gramophone towers do is very convenient for taking these tanky targets out. Of course, only if we have them captured, otherwise they will be healing our enemies and doing all of our hard work. But the paths that these boats take on this wave in particular really start messing with me. I did not execute this well at all. I'm already laying down Silver Ash in a spot where he will get taken by a boat later if I'm not careful, and of course Wolfenite needs to get out of the way too. This is somewhat mitigated, of course, by the fact that we do have fast redeploying operators for everything, thanks to our squad perk, right? The 70% reduction, but it still sucks, right? It's still a drain on DP. It's still a drain on our overall mental state. We have to be mindful of, okay, who's on the field? Who do I need to get out of the way? Who do I need to refresh the skill for? It gets messy very, very quickly. And as I've already mentioned, this is just one of those kinds of scuffed clears where you're not able to, or it highlights stuff that you might not otherwise be able to appreciate until you start getting in the weeds here and trying to experiment and play the game as it were here. Speaking of the fast redeployment options, right? I wanted to make special mention of April and Scotty here. These are two operators that make very, very good use of fast redeployment time reductions, the percentage ones, because they both have talents that give an extra flat additional bonus to their redeployment time reduction, right? So it's roughly 28 seconds for April if you have her module, and then 30 seconds for Scotty, also buffed with the module. I think that's module X or Chi if you're paying attention to the Greek letters. And so what that means is that the percentage redeployment time reduction will apply first, and so that just goes off of their base, which is usually around 70 seconds, give or take. That's for most classes, I believe. And then after that redeployment time reduction is applied, so it goes down to like roughly like 35, or I guess 35 is if it's at 50, and then kind of somewhere in the 20s and 30s if it's less than that. But the math works out here to where their flat redeployment time reduction afterwards gets applied after the percentage and brings it down to 0. So whenever you see me retreating April and Scotty back into our hand, their portraits just light up, just straight up, no questions asked, and it's so fun. It's so fun. I love these two for that reason alone. Apparently you can do this also with 2-star Yato, but obviously you don't have as much power and punch behind that combo. So I guess if you combine with Silver Ash S2, as I'm doing here, still useful in that regard. It's an extra body to throw out, but of course we have this all-star lineup at our disposal with slightly better options, so we're not opting to use that 2-star Yato. But yeah, I love this combo, especially, of course, in my favorite mode, Reclamation Algorithm. April in particular is just really good for scouting, when you just drop high ground down or find natural high ground for her to just sit in camouflage, scout, maybe take out a few targets, maybe capture a whole bunch of slugs. She's really good for capturing slugs for slug racing as well, with that instant redeploy. And of course, Scotty can be a melee answer to that as well, and she hits very, very hard and is very representative of her Dreadnought class. You can see that we lost another to the boats here, but since that we've had such good tower control, that this boat is so low HP that it's not even a problem. Surfer's just going to get out just fine, and we're just going to wait for Witch King to finish his business in middle lane before we actually get to taking him down and popping the phase out. The left lane is very easily held, by the way, with just Crown Slayer alone with her module to enhance the stun duration. The redeployment time reduction here cannot be understated. It just makes a lot of these operators just reach an absurd level of power in terms of what they can do for you now, and Crown Slayer is no different. And since they have a lot of low base cost, then we're able to spam them out really nicely here without too much Vanguard support. Obviously, we still have the Silver Ash in play, but he's mainly there to reduce the cost for Scotty and Surtur respectively. Classic choices, obviously, but these redeployment costs, they can get up into like the 50s if you're not careful, so you definitely want some kind of DP generation. And I like the fact that strategists in general reduce the DP cost rather than increasing DP production, because there's two sides to this sort of logistics puzzle of deployment points, right? We kind of go in phases in terms of whether we actually need to worry about DP or not in sort of the overall Arknights metagame. Used to be it's like, oh yeah, we're really just trying to like optimize our budget, and we're just working with basic Pioneer Vanguards, and then you kind of work your way to the mid game, you get Myrtle going, and it's like, well, okay, DP is not really a problem, I can just Myrtle it. And then, we just kind of, swing to and fro when it comes to actually paying attention to the economy side of Arknights. And I do think strategists are a very cool subclass for the Vanguard branch. I actually used Matsukiri for this stage before I went to Ultimate Trial, and found very, very good results with his usage here, since he will, I used him on skill 1, so he will generate DP using skill 1, of course, and he will target, whoever's on the right side. And he doesn't get the order shuffle redeployment thing that Silver Ash does, which is kind of a shame, but I think you could kind of use both, right, and maybe get him to prioritize, whoever is most expensive that way. But alas, we don't have the squad space for it, so instead we're just using Encyoides' talent here, and now we have phase 2. You can see that directional shield off to the right, and so he will take increased damage from the left side, and we're just going to go to town, right? Scotty and April getting dropped down as our primary physical damage dealers. We are fighting Latanians, so they are very proficient in arts and very resistant to it too, so we're going to have to counter with, of course, physical damage. You might see April there. She did have camouflage, but she is still susceptible to splash damage. And so, of course, this doesn't matter for us. We can just drop her right back in. But, you do have to be mindful of the quirks of everything that you're fighting in this game, and you can get complacent only for so long, and you can see Silver Ash just taking a very short boat ride there. We're gonna have to wait for him to come back before we start generating charges for the team again, but at least I'll get Wolfenite back down before the wave transitions over. I guess April's just staying out there. At this point, it's been an hour into stream, and I'm trying to do this again. I already got a win, of course, with Inez, but I was trying to do a slight rarity optimization with switching down to Surfer, and we didn't actually need Inez's bind power there. You can see I'm trying to throw down a Wolfenite trap in the middle tower there, up where the sleeping enemies are, but that found no purchase. You have to be super quick to get a Wolfenite trap down to start capturing that middle tower passively, and so I didn't get it, so I just opted for the right hand side tower instead. Silver Ash is now back in position as well, so he's going to be facing the right side, and the capture tile on the left tower on the high ground is within range of his slash, so that'll be important later for April. We will cover April's retreat with that slash, which of course is because we're fighting Fremont here. So if you haven't done IS5, you might not be familiar with this boss's mechanics, but for those who are not in the know, Fremont, whenever you retreat an operator, or if an operator gets defeated, they will be encapsulated in a coffin that has to be broken by your friendly units. These are very arts resistant, so physical damage does slightly better at breaking them open, but of course, just apply any sort of damage there. And so with this fast redeploying squad, this normally is just kind of, I guess, the nail in the proverbial coffin, pun wordplay semi-intended there, since if we can't get them right back out on the field, we have to work around this could get really nasty very quickly. But since we have Silver Ash and his slash charges, we can just kind of chain things together, try not to over deploy, and just piece this one by one and bust each other out as necessary here. Also, April can stay out on the field and cover a wide area under camouflage, so she's really good at busting people out, and these coffins do have attack priority, by the way. So if you're trying to take down an enemy that's about to leak and you've got a friendly coffin nearby, do not expect your units to take that enemy down. They are going to prioritize their comrades for better and for worse. And I have lost several runs to this off camera, as you might imagine, so be mindful of that when you're dealing with it. But yeah, this mechanic is really rough for this team in particular, but we kind of soft counter that with the Silver Ash, and also with just a little bit of smarter play here. Again, a lot of Arknights has, I guess, stacking insurance for making mistakes, and I don't think people can appreciate that enough sometimes, where the game can be forgiving for a lot of newer players if they put their mind to it. They don't necessarily need to resort to stat sticking everything if they're just kind of being situationally aware of what's going on and how things work. And so now Fremont's on the move. Now, Fremont, as a boss himself, he attacks like a Mystic caster would. I thought that was kind of appropriately thematic with Ebenholtz being a thing, right? We have, similar Latanian coverage, and so he will gather these charges. As you can see, they're just like light orbs orbiting around him, and when he has multiple of these charges, he will launch them all at once at the first target in range. So it's basically like a Mystic caster. They will hit very hard if they haven't attacked for a while, but if they're under like constant pressure, right, their attack speed isn't the greatest, then their damage output might not be as bursty as you would like it to be. So you definitely need a lot of units, or at least one unit, to bait out the attack if you want to go for a sustained push there. And I will do that later with that Surfer that I just deployed, somewhat accidentally. I didn't expect the slash range to hit the flag bearer and wake him up, but the slash was enough, since now we have all 3 King's Relics. We have that plus 150% attack, along with I guess it doesn't matter with the attack speed in this case, but King's New Lance was the Wave 2 fatty bonus that I neglected to mention, and so Surfer slashes were able to take that out, and so I say, you know what? I already popped one, let me pop the other. I'm just going to go ahead and try to go ham and take the phase. I don't quite end up doing that, unfortunately, but it still works out. I kind of panic deployed April to cover the retreat of our coffined operators there, but we lose out on one in the middle there, and that would be Crown Slayer. Very unfortunate there, because we are relying on her for a lot, but either way, we're still making good progress in this round. Even if we don't necessarily feel like it, I'm still weighing my options like, oh god, how do I take him down? What's going on? But in the background, Wolfenite traps have been passively capturing towers, so that's really good. We don't get our progress undone by the tower healing once, Fremont takes the first half of his lap. I barely managed to catch April there before she gets taken by the boat. So even though we have good tower control, I wouldn't necessarily be concerned. Taking the coffin option when we have guaranteed coverage is arguably better, so I opt for that. And now we have 2 charges of slashes for everybody in reserve right now. And these coffins, again, they're arts resistant. These gramophone towers, even though they do scaling damage, they are dealing arts damage. So it's going to take them a while to chip through these coffins here. And so now Surfer baits a hit out, right? So Fremont's out of charges, or at least he's going to go down back to 1 charge. So he's not going to hit as hard. We still need to maybe bait him out for another, since I was kind of indecisive there and he wasn't blocking anything yet. So Crown Slayer goes down, takes out the mage that threatens our middle tower, and of course the Lancer there, a good option for that as well. And then Surtur, she's going to come out here, and the thing about Surtur here is that while she is affected by the minus HP debuff from the squad perk that gives us redeployment time, her skill gives flat max HP, right? The infamous skill 3 that makes her very, very bulky and makes her hit very hard. So we can take advantage of that. The tower will heal us for quite a bit of that flat bonus HP. It's 5,000 to be exact. So now all of a sudden we can do traditional tanking with this setup, right? There's more than one way to be durable and resilient in Arknights. You can kind of throw more bodies at the problem until they become a solution, or you can try to use crowd control to stall things out, as we've been doing with the freeze. But in this case, I just need Surtur to block, take attention, and just be a really big pool of HP so that Fremont can be busy with something else and he doesn't take out Scotty with like a stray arts spell as well. So there we go, Fremont phase done, and so now I assess where our units have been randomly teleported to. So Silver Ash is in a good spot, right? He's just down in the bottom right. Nothing else is going to come for him there, so I decide, okay, this is a good run. We'll keep this. Wolfenite unfortunately gets boated, which, it kind of sucks, but we already captured the towers anyway, and we don't really need to use her traps for anything. I could have used her on skill 1 if I'm being honest, but I'm so used to using skill 2 because of the increased range that it gets, and it also, it benefits us for other range-based mechanics like, of course, an RA, but also the thickets from Ablana's stages. Where was it? Well, not the Firelight casts. The one after that. Elegies or Ashes, I believe. As for April, she was in the bottom left, but we had to, break her out of jail with Kafka there. So the slashes weren't enough quite yet, but the last burst from Kafka's skill 1 did the job, and so that was fine too. And yeah, we just we just burst him down again with a lot of physical damage from Scotty, and there we go. We are free to redeploy as we see fit. So yeah, all in all, it is not a niche clear. It is not a super ultra mega challenge clear as well. You can see me, stretching since the hard part's all over now, and now I just get to mess around. But I still think there's a lot to appreciate here, and that's exactly why I'm making this video. There's so many mechanics that come into play because Arknights is built off of, I guess, the mother genre that is real-time strategy, and so there's a lot to work around and play with when it comes to skill expression. And by the way, just as a disclaimer, right, I'm not trying to dig against niche knights and the challenge players in any way. Like, they're still very, very talented, and I appreciate like what they bring to the scene, right? And if anything, like, I'm humbled, right? I'm never gonna be that good to that degree just because I don't have the time, willpower, and patience to push that hard all the time and be consistent about it, right? So it's genuinely a glorious display of passion. But again, when I kind of look at the landscape at large, I think that there's just quite a lot of it, and then a lot of stuff that's in between an easy clear guide and a niche knight's challenge clear is just kind of lost. And so this is what I want to try and bring to the table when it comes to these kinds of things. So we're just mopping up here, and that'll be the clear TFN 06 TN-4 Ultimate. at your disposal with an E1 level 60 Silver Ash. There we go. We even got him on the end screen there. So thank you for watching. I hope to do more of these in the future, not just with my own clears, but with maybe other people's clears. But I will need permission to, kind of upload those, right? So I can't just take whatever crazy concoction that the Niche Knights community or maybe like Lungman Dragons have cooked up and just start yapping over that. That would be very uncool of me. So if you guys want to contribute to this potentially, I am planning on opening up a channel in my Discord server, so you can kind of send me stuff there, or maybe we can discuss, and if I find it interesting, I'll make another video in between like my bigger pieces, and if not, then I'll just keep on doing this whenever I get the inspiration with my own clears. I also have an email address, so if you're old school like that, it's up in my YouTube channel. You'll have to click a little button to reveal that, and I check my inbox there too, so you can reach out to me there as well. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Sockcast's Clears. I guess like and subscribe if you like this kind of content, because that definitely helps me out in very passive and I'd say mysterious ways, but number go up is always nice. So and as for the next video that I'm gonna put out, it's gonna be one of the bigger ones. I want to work on these in between my bigger pieces, but it's due time. I've been working on some bigger projects for a while, so look forward to that. Catch me on Twitch if you can. This was indeed recorded live on Twitch, and I will see you guys then. Take care of yourselves and each other.